I'm the Book Baron. Welcome in, everybody. Can you believe it? We're wrapping up August. Summer's done. Fiend over. I can't believe it. I feel like it went so fast. I was so busy and I spent so much of it in a reading slump. It's really quite depressing, but I think we might be inching our way out. I think we're getting closer. Minus the book slump, I've actually had a really good summer. I got out on my paddleboard, which is my very favorite thing to do. I saw a lion's mane jellyfish the last time I went out. That was huge. I will insert a photo if I can find it. Usually we just see these little tiny ones. Seeing really big ones was really crazy. How many times can I say really? Really? Sometimes I hate myself. Once again, this will be a two-parter. I will reappear with different lighting, different makeup, different hair. I found that last time when I filmed it in one shot, my energy about halfway through was like, and I don't want to do that again. So 2 parts. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about the books that I read so far in August to kick things off. The first book we have, The Hunter by Emmy Chandler. So this is the second book in the Prison Planet series. This is on KU, and I also found out, I think it's just the first 2 books. A couple of them at least are on the Audible Plus catalog as well. So there's that. So it is, as you've probably surmised from the series title, Prison Planet. It's also survivalist, but in a way different way than the first book. We're following Macy, who is a side character from the previous book. So she was in that same zone with our heroine from that book. She got reassigned to a different zone. In this zone, the women are used and rented as like playthings for the elite and the friends of the prison warden. And the guys are all like the worst of the worst. They've been sentenced to death. But you know, we can't just like lethal injection and be done with it. No, no, no. The elite hunt the convicted men and televise the hunt for entertainment. Immediately things go wrong for our heroine. She is in a suite. She's been rented for the first time. She's watching the hunt on TV and the guy starts making advances. He's a real fucking creep and she offs him in an act of self-defense. But unfortunately, if you K-word anyone, it's an automatic death sentence. Yeah. So the person that was hunting in the televised event, he is actually the brother of the person that she K-worded. So he's like, release this gal into the pen. I will carry out her sentence. Yeah. So the hero is the guy that was being hunted and they have to team up and figure out how to survive in this pen. This was just a wild book. It was like this mashup of like the most dangerous game and like Prison Planet, but not quite as much Prison Planet. It was such a departure from the previous books. I was like, how much can you do with Prison Planet? How many times can you kind of have the same thing happen? No, she was just like, what if we just like went for a completely different ride? It's so tension filled because unlike the other book where you kind of have the threat of the other prisoners, they have no resources at all. They don't have food, water, shelter, clothing. They are trying to survive someone that is hunting them, actively hunting them. It's so tense and they have to think on their feet. And also there is a continuation of the overarching plot from the previous book. I did feel like it took over the third act like a little bit too much for my liking personally. So it did kind of like knock it down from like what I thought was going to be a 5-star to a 4-star, but final rating 4 stars. I had a really good time. Oh, okay. Next up, The Protector from the Northman series by Pier. I hope I said that right. It's a first in a series that's on KU. It's a dystopian romance, a little bit sci-fi-ish. We're 400 years in the future and there's been this war where any men that were not okay being ruled by women got pushed up into Canada and Alaska, and everyone else that was fine with it like moved down into like the lower 48, I guess. So our heroine Karina is like an anthropologist, or no, not an anthropologist, an archaeologist and a history professor. So she kind of teaches about the culture leading up to the war, and then also what happened in the aftermath and a little bit about the Northmen, which is kind of like a forbidden topic. The Northmen, they're not supposed to be talked about. It's kind of like a taboo subject. They're like known for being like brutal and ungroomed and dangerous, and women are not safe around them. Our heroine ends up through a series of events going on an archaeological excavation that's up there because they need some help and nobody will go except for her. That's when she finds out just how brutal they are. I DNF'd this at the 50% mark. I was like shaking mad reading parts of this book. Both versions of society suck. Like it's kind of the 2 extreme ends. Men are better, women are better. and just how shitty that is. The hero and heroine are like caricatures. They don't have of like these two extreme opinions. And so they're both like, they both just suck. They suck so hard. They're so annoying. They're so miserable to follow. Hi, it's me to do a voiceover and apparently sing for some reason. Bringing sexy back. Yeah, so that's not good singing, but I digress. So hi, I don't know what it was when I sat down to record this section. I think I was just so annoyed and pissed off at this book that I hadn't really like sat with enough of it to really explain like why I was so frustrated. And I'll tell you just like up front that a lot of the messaging the Northmen espouse mirrors a lot of messaging that I got when I was younger and messaging I continue to get from loved ones about what my place in the world is supposed to be as a woman. So I'm just gonna preface all of my review with that. And I understand that the author's intention, or the way she kind of frames this book, is that what if we took someone from the most extreme right-wing thought, you know, in the future, taken to the most extreme ends, right? What if we take that person and then we take someone from the other side on the most other extreme end, and what if we brought them together? Can they find love? And I just don't think this was done successfully, partially because there's absolutely no fucking character growth. There's none. I was at the 50% mark. I didn't see any. And if anything, I felt like maybe there was even a few more attempts to push the female main character towards the male main character's ideas, which just kind of ticked me off because they're heinous and misogynistic and I fucking hated them. But aside from that, I guess I just don't really find it all that cute when a character doesn't think you deserve rights because of your gender, race, or some other factor. And I also just don't think it's cute when you have to love somebody of that gender, of that race, of that ability level, of whatever the thing is, that you have to love a person from that category in order to see their humanity. And also, like, it's just not fun to have to sit and listen to someone with like really horrible beliefs about your gender espouse them on page when, like, frankly, I already have to listen to that, like, with people on the news, with the politics going on currently in the US. I have to listen to it from loved ones occasionally, unfortunately. So the last thing that I want to do with my very limited free time these days is listen to another heinous man expound more heinous beliefs that I've already had to hear. You know, it's just exhausting. That doesn't even begin to cover the heroine, who was insufferable in her own way. So it's just frustrating, right? Like, you have these two people and you're supposed to be rooting for them to fall in love. They both suck and they show no signs of changing. Why would I want them to fall in love? I don't care. And that's just the romance, right? That doesn't even get into the premise, which has some big flaws. The problems that I have with the world building. Pollution doesn't function on borderlines, thank you. Also, the use of homophobic slurs. There's a lot wrong with this book. And although I didn't get to this part, I have seen some reviews pointing out some issues with how race is discussed as well, so that's fun. That's what I kind of wanted to pop on and say now that I've had like a little bit more time and a little bit more distance from this book. But I'm going to leave in a few other clips where I'm like somewhat coherent. It kind of just reiterates what I'm already said, but like have fun with them. So, okay, that's all I had to say. Okay, bye. And I'm sorry, like I just can't get on board with a hero that doesn't respect women and thinks that they shouldn't have rights and should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Like, no, thank you. That man can eat glass. And I think especially just with the current political climate in the US, sorry, I should be specific. The current political climate in the US, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. It's a little bit hitting too close to home. I will tell you one of my very specific triggers that comes up shockingly often is when a male main character calls the heroine woman, and not like she is a woman, like woman go do X or woman get over here. The fury that builds in me is disproportionate. I think the lack of nuance really just got to me. I think if you want to do like a fun thought experiment with that kind of stuff, maybe you'll like this, because I do have friends that like it, but personally it was just, I was okay, I'm fine, and I'm gonna move on. Next up, I have a book book that was in my historical vlog called The Mistress Experience by Scarlet Pekam. This is the third book in the Society of Sirens, Siren Society series. It's published wide. I got it through my library, and thank you to whoever recommended it because I know someone did. I don't know who it was. I really appreciate it. I really liked this book. It's a historical romance. It's lessons in seduction, but the woman's the teacher. We're following a legendary courtesan. Her name is Tice. She is so popular. She only needs to take a client once a week, and she never has the same client twice. But she's trying to raise some money to like start this women's school and just kind of further women's education, women's rights kind of thing. So she's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna auction off a month with me as like the Mistress experience. So the guy that wins, he's a former client. She knows of him. They're like, that'll be fine. He's kind of like a happy-go-lucky party guy. Like, we'll have a good time. Gets in the carriage, gets to the house. She's like, that's not this guy's house. I've been to his house. This isn't his house. And so she's like, hold on, Mr. Carriage Man. I'm just gonna be right back. And she goes in and she's like, who the hell are you? Finds a man by the name Lord Alistair. It turns out he used the other guy as a proxy because he is, I think he's an earl or a duke. He's of the upper echelons of society, and he's also a very radical politician. And so he's like, I can't have that getting out that I'm like hanging out with a courtesan, right? Like, we can't do that. But he needs her because he wants to take a wife this season, and he is an absolute square. And he's really lousy in the sack. So he's like, I really want to like fix that so I can seduce and be good at bed sport. Thoughts on this? I really loved the heroine. She was such a spitfire. She's like, anytime I was kind of like, feel like things are gonna lull, she's just like, I'm going to tease the hero, make him blush, which is so easy to do. But she keeps things interesting because she can't really read and write all that well. She's not from high society. She's not going to balls. So she's constantly like, I'm bored. I want to be doing something. I really liked that there wasn't really any mocking or demeaning of her job. And I think the hero's just this cutesy little square man. Like, he's so rigid and structured, and he learns how to have fun. I did like too that there was some structure to delay the spice from happening. So we had some like building of tension. My only gripe with this book was really that I didn't fully understand like why the hero and heroine couldn't be together. Like, I think on like just a basic level, like we can kind of get it. But I didn't really understand, like, what does this mean? Is it jeopardize his career? Does a bill he wants to get passed not get passed? Does he not get reelected? Is he an elected official or is he appointed? Like, I don't know. Because of that, 4 stars, but I had a really fun time with that one. Next up, I read Praying for Rain. This is by B.B. Easton. This is the first in a series that's on KU. This is an apocalyptic romance, which is like the lead up and the actual apocalypse. So basically in this world, it's modern society, but everyone's having these like dreams and premonitions of these 4 horsemen, and they're getting this specific date of when society is gonna fall. Everything's gone to shit. Businesses abandoned, cars are abandoned, people are absolutely reckless. It's a wasteland out there. This part never made sense to me. For some reason, a burger joint is still running, and the heroine ends up going to that fast food chain. It's there that she ends up in a bit of a kerfuffle because everyone's kind of pushing, shoving, trying to get fed. She ends up kind of getting knocked over or pulling stuff out of her pockets, and they see that she has pills. And so there's a mad dash to kind of grab them. The hero's like, ooh, I want those to pay for groceries. So he ends up using his gun to get the pills and her out of there. And then it's them kind of like hanging out leading up to the apocalypse. Thoughts on this? I started off reading this physically, and I ended up switching to the audio because I was kind of struggling with it. It had all the ingredients that I like. Survival element, it's chaotic, like it's the fall of society, but the romance just felt a little bit too instant. Where's the chemistry? It kind of felt like the heroine was like a quirky rom-com heroine, so she didn't feel like she really fit in this world for one, but she just is like a stage 5 clinger to the hero, and he just kind of like, she's hot and I'm horny, so she can stick around. Unfortunately, I did end up giving this a rating of 2 stars. Yeah, I think it's just not for me. I think there will be a lot of people that like it though. If you like kind of more that rom-com-y heroine, give it a go. See if you like it. Next up, thanks to one of you all, I read Haven by CLA Kent, which is the first in a novella series on KU. It's in the same world as Last Light. It's like a friends with benefits, post-apocalyptic survivalist. So because it's the same world, we had the asteroid that hit, society fell, and we start off with these people that are living on this like self-sustaining farm that was set up by this family pre-apocalypse. Them and their foster kids basically just rode out the apocalypse, have just been kind of like continuing to live their lives, albeit they've got the wall and guns and a little bit more protection going on. And the hero and heroine that we have are kind of the de facto leaders because of the things that have happened, and they're basically keeping it running. And because there's a little bit limited options and we've got some itches we need to scratch, they end up developing sort of a friends with benefits situation. My thoughts on this. This started off, I thought it was going to be boring because it was like Little House on the Apocalyptic Prairie. And I was like, I don't care about people baking bread and growing tomatoes. So I was kind of like, this is a little slow. And there's an established relationship. They've already got a little something going on. They've already established the benefits part of their friends with benefits relationship. I was kind of like, well, what am I supposed to see here? Because everything, I feel like I'm coming into so much that's pre-established, but very quickly, I will say, that changes. They end up leaving the farm because of some adventuring that they need to do, and we get to see them in action together and how well they know each other and how deep their bond is, and that bond furthering because they finally get to interact with one another without all of these prying eyes. The third act was like, you could kind of see it coming. There was a lot of heavy foreshadowing, so it was a little bit predictable in that regard, but it did have my heart pounding at certain points, and this was definitely more emotional than some of the other CLA Kent books I've read, so rating of 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. Next up, I have Transcendence, and this is by SHEA Savage. I don't think that's correct, but whatever. It's a caveman kind of time travel-ish romance. The hero, his name, I think it's supposed to be Ed. He's a caveman. He has tragically lost the rest of his tribe. He's living alone. He's barely surviving. And he goes out to one of his pit traps one day and finds the heroine in there. She's got some kind of weird clothes on and she's making all these weird sounds with her mouth. He's just kind of like, what is this? But he's like, score. I found a mate. I cannot wait to provide, protect, and put a baby in her. He's stoked. He's won the lottery. And our heroine's name is Elizabeth, but because Ed Boy, like, he's kind of pre-verbal for the most part, she gets called like Beh most of it. So anyways, basically she kind of comes in and she's confused. She has 0 survival skills because she's from modern time, and there's just like this dirty cave boy that's just like, ooh. She can't really communicate with him. He doesn't seem to be engaging with the sound at all, and they have to figure out how to communicate and develop their own sort of language and connection because they got to prepare because winter's coming. That's not the phrase I want. So thoughts on this. So this is entirely from the hero's perspective, and there's 0 hints at the language at all. You don't even, like, no hints. He's just like, she just keeps making these annoying mouth sounds that are giving me a headache. So you really have to pay attention to the actions and the body language, and they do eventually learn like a system of communication that works for them, but it's a slog at first. The hero though, he's so endearing, he's so sweet. He messes up and he just never understands quite why, because he's coming at it from his like cultural lens and she's coming at it from hers. And every time he's just like, I'm just gonna try harder. I am gonna hunt a bigger boar. I am going to lift this boar above my head so she knows that I am strong. He's determined, and he will just keep trying until he gets it right, and it's so cute. The heroine, interestingly, at first you're kind of like, what is she gonna do? Because she doesn't even know how to like weave a basket or anything, but she ends up inventing all of these things because she has that foresight. Like, he just becomes so impressed with her because of that. One thing that I'll give kind of as a heads up is that we are doing it like we do on the Discovery Channel. There is pregnancy and babies as part of this story. So I know that's not gonna like jive for everybody. And it's definitely a slow start. It's a slow slog to start. There's a lot of miscommunication, which is just like, it's gonna happen based on the setup. Very, very character driven. And it actually follows them through a pretty large chunk of their life. So I just wanted to preface that because I know that that's not gonna work for some of you. So I give this a rating of 4.5 stars. Actually, if you like the Ice Planet Barbarian series, maybe give this one a go, because it's kind of got some similar energy. After that, I went on a DNFing rampage. And then an absolute angel of a subscriber after I was like, help, SOS, like I'm putting up the bat signal. I'm suffering right now with this slump. It's going so bad for me. I hope I say your name right. It's Danielle or Danelle. I think it's Danelle, but she ended up reaching out and she was like, I'm fighting the same battle. Try Accidental Witness by Sam Mariano. So I ended up picking it up. Thank you, girl. Seriously saved me. So this is a first in a series on KU, and it's a mafia new adult romance. So Mia ends up witnessing something that she shouldn't, and it involves a classmate of hers, Victor, and he ends up seeing her. So she's just kind of like terrified. She's waiting for the next shoe to drop. She's waiting for his family, who is rumored to be very dangerous and scary people, to tie up those loose ends. She's like trying to keep her head down. It turns out Vince, have I been saying Victor? That's not what I wanted. Vince is intrigued by Mia. Even though he knows he shouldn't get involved with her and he shouldn't leave a loose end, he's just too intrigued. These two end up getting involved, and that means his family's gonna get involved. Some twisted games are afoot, folks. Thoughts on this? Despite how short this book is, I could not believe the amount that happens. This is the setup. The main stuff is completely different. It's so much happens. It's action-packed right away, so it completely sucked me in. I will say the romance is like a little bit on the weak side. It was a little bit insta, didn't have much build, but we kind of have to get that set up because we got a lot of ground to cover. So it ends up working out. It's not the strongest part, but like the plot is fun. And Mia's a great character, so it's fine. I just want her to be happy. This book, I was like, I don't know where this is going. Like I thought I did. I thought I have the setup and I was like, okay, this is fine, a little bit predictable. And then I was like, oh, I have no idea where this is going, to the point that at like the 80-90% mark, I was like, how the heck is this gonna end? I gave it a rating of 4 stars. Such a good time. Next up, we have Greenlight by Jessie Hall. My cheap bitch-itis took a vacation for one singular day, and I did end up purchasing this book. It's a standalone that's published wide, and I guess now I've been hearing that she's maybe not gonna put it on KU, so I guess you might just have to buy it. Anyway, I digress. It's a second chance step-sibling toxic bully romance with a light revenge suspense plotline. This is about a girl in Montana, and she used to be a cam girl to make some money, and she ended up developing a very special connection with one guy on there. They told each other everything, but she ended up ghosting him. He ended up going on a very self-destructive path, got into drugs, alcohol. He almost overdosed a couple times. But now it turns out this cam girl is his stepsister, and he's ready to get his revenge because she is in a little bit of a housing situation where she doesn't have any money. She needs somewhere to stay while she goes to university and plays in the orchestra. They're gonna be roommates. So, thoughts on this? Okay, this book was such a tough one to summarize. Nikki and I were kind of going back and forth with voice notes because we were like trying to piece together like how we felt, because the vibes of this book, the energy of this book is really good. If you liked any of the promo material, perfectly mirrors that. Like she had a vision in mind and she executed on that. It's very spice heavy, and Jessie Hall's spice is delicious. I was like really invested in all of the scenes. Up until about like maybe the 50% mark, I was eating this book up. I loved Montana. She has a no fucks given attitude. I love a bully romance because it just offers good tension. Around the 50% mark, I started kind of losing steam because I just felt like things were like a little bit too zoomed in on the couple, and because the book is so long, I just wanted like a little bit something else. Here's how zoomed in it was on the couple. I forgot she was going to college, like entirely. She doesn't go to class once. I don't hear her talking about carrying around a book bag. I wanted a better reason for why Shane was bullying her. I felt like he was kind of blaming her for his own shit and other people's actions. I didn't feel like the revenge plotline was that well fleshed out. It was kind of presented in both an obvious and confusing way. Obvious in that it was easy to put the pieces together, like the major pieces together, but like the actual logistics of some of the connections, I was kind of like, wait, what? There's also some plot holes. I think that needed a little bit more work personally. I think basically what this comes down to is I just feel like the timeline and the actual plot wasn't, I don't want to say that it wasn't done well, but I am going to say that I think. I just feel like there was continuity issues. We have this moment where Shane takes her things and she needs them. It's critical. She has to memorize some information for the next day. She has to do something for him in order to get that stuff back. We never get the conclusion to that. We end up at a rugby game and then we go to a house party. I'm like, what happened? How did that conclude? So there's stuff like that where I was just kind of like, feel like we're missing some pieces and we're a little too zoomed in to the interactions with the hero and heroine. Oh, also full star off because we made the rugby players villains. Rugby players are hot and they've got amazing butts, and I think that you're just jealous. So for anyone that's new, I played rugby in college, so that's why I'm bitter about it. But I would say that if you really like bad boy vibes and you are looking for some hot, spicy stuff and you don't care about some of the other plotting things, I would say give it a go. It's a very confusing book. I do not know how to rate it. I don't know how I'm gonna rate it. Okay, I'm done talking about this book. Moving on. Next up, we have The Hunter. This happened last time too. What the fuck? I have 2 books called The Hunter. Good news, I liked both. So this is by Karin. This is the second book after The Highwayman. I did a buddy read with Lynn's romance library. She was like, if you read the first one, I'll read the second one with you and like we can continue on together. So this is like a dark historical romance with like some kind of a little bit of a mystery. Our hero is a hitman for the hero from The Highwayman. His name is Christopher, and his latest contract is to kill this actress. And that's the very popular, the very seductive Millie. He ends up just getting his world turned upside down because so captivated by her, he can't carry out the hit. This has never happened to him before. He kind of feels like maybe he wants a different arrangement with her. They end up striking up a little bit of a bargain so that she can save her own skin. So thoughts on this? I think the first scene, it felt a little bit unnecessary. It was a little bit jarring to read, even more so than The Highwayman, but it does ease up after that. It kind of mirrors the previous book in that regard. I loved that we had a damaged hero. And I think that that setup, although really dark and unnecessary, does kind of set up why he's drawn to the heroine because of some parallels in his life. I love that this was plot driven. We did have a little bit of a lull in the middle. I felt like the romance was a little bit insta, but the action at the end was amazing and it was so fun. It like kind of kept coming and kept coming. And I really loved that the heroine was Polish. So we got some on-page use of the Polish language, not a ton, but just a little bit. One thing I'll say, and this did really annoy me with the audiobook, they mispronounced her son's name. They pronounced her son's name Jacob. His name is Jakub. That's the Polish pronunciation. So that was incorrect. That just kind of irritated me. That just felt like such an obvious quality issue. And then also there was some like weird diversity in this. They would have like random side characters just be from all these different backgrounds. They would be in like one scene and never in another scene again. And they were always referred to as like the African, the Arab. It wasn't well done. It was a little cringy. So I'm giving this a rating of 4 stars, so overall I really liked it, but it does have some minor little issues with it for sure. Last one I've got for you is Highland Captive, and this is by Hannah Howell. This is published wide. This is a Scottish, I think medieval historical romance, and it's captive. So we have Emil, and she is abducted by a feuding clan member with her brother. Good news though, she is dressed as a boy, so her virtue is not at risk. However, this subterfuge ends up being discovered, and so that she realizes she's got to get out of there. And that's when the head of the clan ends up spotting her for the first time. He's a very fierce warrior. He's a little bit of a rogue. And he's like, who is that? He decides that maybe this captive, maybe he doesn't want to ransom her. I'm going to keep this a little bit on the brief side because I lost steam and I've been filming for way too long. This has a fun, light captive vibe at the beginning. I liked that the heroine was a Spitfire. She's a very proficient writer. She ends up striking a bargain with the hero because she would rather sacrifice herself than her horse. And I like that there was but there was a little bit of a plot of like, why has her dad betrothed her to this really evil guy? Why is he kind of ignoring her? Like something's going on with that. I think this was too long ultimately, and it kind of dragged down in the middle. The romance was a little bit insta. They jump into bed like really quick. But I have to warn you, this is an older book, so this has so many tropes that I think are just not going to jive with like most people. So here's a list. If you don't like these, just don't read this. We have a Not Like Other Girls heroine. She's also a virgin heroine, and she's quite naive and stubborn. There is other woman drama. All the women are either old, crusty fuddy-duddies or they're whore sluts and crazy. Those are the 2 options you've got. When the hero meets the heroine, immediately he's like, I hope she's old enough that I can fuck her. Some of those things were icky. I'm giving it a rating of 3 stars, but that is what I have for the first half. Hopefully I am less long-winded in the second half. See you in a second. Hi, so we have horrible lighting. Isn't that fun? It's cloudy out today. I guess that's fine, but I have a couple more books for you. I will warn you, the reading slump is getting better, but I'm still reading very slow, like really slow. Like I only have technically 3 books to talk to you about. I can't make this shit up. Apparently, I can just not be trusted to count or use numbers appropriately. I don't know how many videos I'm gonna have to mess this up in before I get it right, but I'm going to be talking about 4 books officially, and technically, I will be throwing in a 5th one because it's part of a duet. Now let's get back to it. It didn't go so good. So I read A Ship of Bones and Teeth by Karina Howell. So this is a fantasy that's got like pirates. It's like The Little Mermaid after the HEA, and the HEA went wrong. It was a non-HEA. We have Princess Marin. She used to be a siren, and then she saw Eric and she was like, Hottie McHotterson, I need that in my life. Sells herself to a sea witch and gets to go live out her dreams on land with him. Unfortunately, good sir, Eric, our boy, he is horribly cruel. He's just absolutely the worst. She's miserable. It's 10 years later now, and she hates her life. Unfortunately for her, it's gonna get like even worse because they're traveling across the seas, the oceans. They end up getting taken hostage by some pirates who are led by the very notorious Captain Ramsay's Bones Batista. It is through this process, through this being taken hostage, that Marin learns that Bones also has a vendetta against the same sea witch. They're gonna team up and get revenge on her together. I know a lot of people like this book, and if you're one of those people and don't want to hear negative things about this book, skip to the next one. Because I know that this is well loved. Unfortunately, I did not like it. Like, at all. And I'm really sad about it. I really thought I was gonna love this because, like, I love pirates. I love anything that has to do with the water. I'm obsessed with water, like, in real life, hence the conversation about paddleboard at the beginning of this video. I love, like, water imagery. I just like the atmosphere water provides. And so I was like, it feels like this is such an easy win. I like Karina Howell's writing, but I think I'm just not liking her fantasies. One of the things that I really did not like about this book is the hero. He's incredibly generic, and I just struggled to connect with him. It felt like he was just chronically horny. He was hard at the slightest breeze. And this man sprang into life. So he was just kind of giving like generic alpha protector type. As a result, I just didn't feel the chemistry at all. They're making these big proclamations, they're sacrificing all of a sudden for one another, and I was like, when did we get to this part of the relationship? And I was like, this feels totally unearned. What has happened that makes you that connected to this person? I didn't feel it. I didn't see it. I didn't get it. Issues that I have with the plot. The first 50%, painfully slow. And in that, there wasn't a lot of movement towards the end goal. We had tons of action, there's lots of things happening, but we weren't getting anywhere with it. There was even times where I felt like we were backpedaling because we would get to this place and then something would happen, send us back here. So we would have to take all this action, all this page count to get back to the same spot that we had already been in like a little bit ago. And I was like, not very interesting, to be honest. This whole side quest, just like, I just don't care about it. And it felt like all the things that were happening weren't like choices that the heroine was really making. It was a lot of things that happened to her, and then she tried to make the best of that. The second half, by contrast, oh my god, it is pouring out all of a sudden. Sorry if the lighting's just absolutely horrific suddenly. Back to what I was saying. By contrast, the last 50% of the book felt like it was one big bad after another big bad, to the point where I felt like there was times where they would fight off one and they'd be like, phew, and then they'd be like, cannon fire, and then they were moving on to the next one. Because it starts to lose its impact. And another thing that kept happening that also started to lose its impact, there was a lot of people introduced just to be killed off. It started to feel cheap at a certain point, meant to draw emotion out of me, and I was just kind of like, really? The last thing that was really bugging me in this like last half was that there was a lot of magical conveniences that helped get them out of almost every situation. The reason I'm kind of like, I think I'm done with Karina Howell's fantasies, I'll still read her contemporaries, is because I've just noticed a lot of the issues that I have with this book are issues that have kind of bothered me about books that even I like of hers. So I'm giving this a rating of 2 stars. Can you hear the rain? It is pouring. I need to go close my windows. Hold on. Dang, and I thought the lighting was bad when I started. Next up is a book that pissed me off, and that's Passion by Monica Walters. So this is part of an interconnected series that it's got like every book is written by a different author, and it's all centered around arranged marriage. We have Giselle, and she's got everything. She's got a good job. She's got a very stable life. She's got her kids. And she just wants a husband to kind of round things out. Now, she went about having kids in a very unconventional way. She decided to come up with an arrangement with her very best guy friend. They share custody of the kids, but there's no love there. She decides she's gonna tackle love in kind of the same way. So she goes to this agency called Arranged Hearts. They match these couples up, they marry right away, and their success rate is like 97%. Our hero's name is Gentry, and he is a successful vet. He's also looking for his HEA. He just has never found the right woman. When they meet at the altar, the chemistry is explosive. It literally couldn't be a better match. Unfortunately though, real life comes a call-in and is determined to drive a wedge between them. Thoughts on this book are not great either. So the information I just gave you is based off of exclusively what's written in the synopsis. A big piece that gets left out is this is all baby daddy drama. Like, this book should not be called Passion. It should be called Baby Daddy Drama. That's all this is. I was just kind of like, well, this isn't exactly what I signed up for, but that's fine. Messy is kind of fun, so like, let's go with it. The thing that I really just got annoyed with was I just didn't really like the hero or the heroine. The heroine, I will say, I did like a little bit more. She makes a lot of bad decisions. No drama, but then she makes these like decisions. So she doesn't tell her baby daddy that she's getting married and immediately moving in with this man. So her baby daddy's like, I'm not letting my kids stay at that house. I don't know who this man is. Which, frankly, I was like, I'm on the baby daddy side. And I think the heroine knew she screwed up. But she makes a decision later on to pull the goalie without consulting the hero. And I also found that very problematic. The hero is the character I take the most issue with. And it's because he is presented as this like ultimate green flag hero. This man is a massive red flag. He adapts to the different people he's around. So this dude is a smooth talker, even by the book's own admission. He's telling people and adapting his personality to what people want to hear. And I get it, like, to some degree, you gotta do that. But like, it comes off sleazy as all hell. It's hailing now. But my biggest gripe with him, like, I could kind of put that aside, like, whatever, like, maybe he's just a very adaptable person. It feels a little icky, but it's fine, right? No. And he proves to be an absolute shitbag. So the heroine is obviously very distressed. She can't live with her kids for a little bit. She's trying to get her baby daddy to come around. And this man is so unsupportive. He decides that she's been emotional for too long and not attending to her wifely duties. So basically, she's like not immediately and constantly emotionally available for him. And so he wants to get a divorce and like wants to hook up with other women. Grow the fuck up. Don't get married, dude. You don't love her? Ew. Ew. It was just so unsupportive. It was so like me. It just felt so icky that he just felt like he came first before her kids. Her kids. That's just the problems that I had with the characters. There's also some issues that I had with the writing being clunky and a little over expositional. At one point, this is a sentence in the book, it said he didn't add a mixer, meaning he was drinking it straight. Yeah, I know that's what not adding a mixer means. You know, it's stuff like that. I don't need it spoon-fed to me in that way. Like, I'm really okay. Ooh, and now the sun's coming out. We're just getting all the weather patterns right now. Anyway, I really didn't like this book and I'm giving it 1 star. That said, I will absolutely read other books in this series because they're written by different people. Speaking of red flag men, so I struck out like bad with those 2 books. And so I was like, we're gonna go back to reading the Morelli family. Nikki couldn't be prouder that I'm doing this deep dive with Sam Mariano right now. So it's nice that I'm making mom happy. So I read the second book in the Morelli family series, which is called Surviving Matteo. This is by Sam Mariano. They do have to be read in order, so definitely don't just jump into this book. This is a dark mafia romance, and we have a little bit of a femme fatale. The heroine's late husband had a gambling addiction, and he's kind of a deadbeat in general. Like, this man, I don't think could have won like a coin toss. Like, he was so bad. He racked up so much debt. And so upon him passing away, a notorious mafioso, Antonio Castellanos, shows up at her door and demands payment. And this man is the head of the Morelli's rival mafia group. He knows it's too much for her to pay off. She does not have the funds. So he says, you know what? Instead, you are going to do me a favor. You're going to seduce and kill my rival, Matteo Morelli, the most feared crime lord in Chicago. Otherwise, he's coming after her daughter. Kevin's just right down here, so if you're seeing my arm moving, I'm petting him. My thoughts on this one. So something that I'm really loving about Sam Mariano's writing in general, and this is true, I think, for pretty much all the books that I've read of hers, she starts off right away with some action, a scene that's really gripping and just like gets you in and invested right away because there's like high stakes. I love it. It sucks me me in every time. This one, much like Accidental Witness, the first book, that synopsis doesn't even cover like half of what this book is even about, which I just love because it keeps you engaged. When the plot, it keeps, not that it like migrates or is meandering, but it's like we reach the conclusion of this section and then it's like, and then now we have this new issue that arises. We don't just like let it lull. The chemistry between hero and heroine is just, it's so good. There's so much tension. It's so palpable. She seems normal, but she really understands how Matteo operates. And so she can kind of get in his head a little bit, which I just love. But Matteo, he is manipulative. He loves a mind game. I love that he loves a mind game. He manipulates people through this whole book. It's sociopath behavior, but these two are a match made in hell. And the spice in this one is actually like dialed up a little bit, which I did really appreciate because it was pretty like off page and pretty mild in the first book, or really brief. And then finally, we have so many unanswered questions. I need to read the next book. I'm not able to continue on just yet with the next book in the series, but I will be soon. Infinity Stars, 5 stars, 10 stars, all the stars. So book 3, and she leaves a note in the end of book 2. If you read book 3, it spoils another duet. And this duet was already on my TBR, so I was like, I'm gonna read those and then come back to the series. So that duet is Irreparable Damage, and that's by Sam Mariano once again. It's a duet. This one is published wide though, just a heads up. It's an age gap, crime, mafia in the background kind of. It's like more emotional and kind of a toxic romance. Willow is the illegitimate daughter of a Chicago mafia boss, someone that I mentioned from the last book, Antonio Castellanos. She lives a pretty quiet life though. Her moms live in the suburbs. She's got her brother. Like her biggest concern really is honestly like picking a college next year. Unfortunately, her father's world ends up kind of colliding with hers and she is abducted from her home. And this is how she meets a PI by the name of Ethan Wilde. And he has been tasked with infiltrating their ring and rescuing a missing girl. That ends up not going over too well because the ring that he's trying to infiltrate needs him to prove his loyalties, to prove that he is just as violent, just as depraved as the rest of them. He ends up having to make a decision to save his own skin and be able to continue with the operation that haunts him. In the process of this, he causes immense harm and he feels responsible for trying to repair some of that damage that he caused, which puts him in a whole host of other compromising positions. Once again, this is a book that starts off with a ton of action. This one leads a little bit more emotional though than her other books. A lot of it is focused on the heroine's emotional healing. One thing that I want to say though with this series is that this duet rather, it's in third person and it just made it a little clunky for me to get into. And unfortunately, while I was still adapting to some of the writing in the book was some of the more emotional parts. And so I struggled a little bit through that section because it felt a little bit slow and I wasn't really connecting very deeply with her in the way that I think I should have. Normally I don't struggle with third person, but it really threw me off here. But anyway, that section is really necessary because then it explains kind of like why they get to the later situations that they end up in. And it's crazy because the author did such a good job setting up the justification, like why everyone makes the decisions that they do, even though you know that they're horrible decisions. You can see it both ways. Chef's kiss to that. Like it was absolutely exceptional. It's really messy. It's people that are actively trying not to be messy too. They're trying to be good people and they're making bad decisions. It's just, it's so good. The last half to like even the last 2/3, I think it was just like the first third that I kind of struggled with a little bit. There's a lot more time with the hero and heroine together. So I think that helped kind of like get me engaged and get me going. I will warn you, there is cheating in here. Our hero is married with 3 kids. So just a heads up for people who do not like that. That is in there. Also, this book really did show its age because this dude is in his early 30s with 3 kids and a house. I was like, what in the rural Midwest is this? Not in this city, not in this economy. Anyway, I think it can't be a 5-star because the first third of the book was a little bit clunky. So I'm going with 4.5 stars. I am in the process of reading the next book in that duet and I'm liking it honestly even more. So that one will probably end up being a 5-star, but I obviously can't tell you anything about it because it directly follows this book. So it's a good duet. You should pick it up. That's all I have for you. I DNF'd so many books this month. I didn't even talk about like the ones that I didn't hardly get into, but like I DNF'd like 17 books this month. It was a rough one, but I'm excited to hopefully be onwards and upwards. Even if I'm reading slower, I feel like my reading's going better. Well, apparently it's only going better when I'm reading Sam Mariano. Things to ponder. Anyways, let me know what you've been reading this month, what you've been loving. Are you starting to transition into like fall reads, or are you still feeling summer? I feel like I'm hearing conflicting things. Some people are ready, some people aren't. Did you have any good 5 stars this month? Anything I should put on my TBR? Any books that I should stay away from? All thoughts are welcome. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you want more content. I would like to be friends, okay? And I really, really hope I see you on my next video. Bye-bye!